Black women are being targeted at work. If you are a Black woman, you have had the experience of being just mistreated, harmed in the workplace, deliberately undermined, asked to work multiple jobs for the price of one, pressured, talked over, experiencing microaggressions at every turn. You're not alone. Unfortunately, this is common for so many of us. But welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Marissa Price. I am a social worker, healer, and online business educator, helping Black women create digital businesses to leave toxic work environments, which is what I had to do to get out of a toxic work environment, was create my own business, which is the case for a lot of us, right? These workplaces are not safe. The vast majority, right? Here and there, you'll find workplaces that actually value, appreciate, and don't view us as threats. But unfortunately, that is an exception to the rule. In this video is in honor of the life and legacy of Dr. Antoinette Bonnie Candia-Bailey, who sadly, and I want to put a trigger warning here, mentions of suicide, but tragically she took her own life earlier this month after, from what I'm reading, from what I'm seeing, experiencing bullying in the workplace. She did everything, right? She did everything, requesting time off, requesting FMLA leave, requesting support from what she was experiencing, which is being targeted, right? And we get into these situations with the best of intentions in these jobs. We have all the qualifications, we have all the degrees. Dr. Candia-Bailey, I believe, was coming back to her alma mater to work, and her dissertation topic was on Black women's experiences in higher education. And so we see the seriousness, the severity of this issue that is now being brought to light. So many of us have experienced it behind the scenes and not really felt safe enough to talk about it, to share our experiences. And now that we have platforms like these, Dr. Kamani's channel, which is how I even realized I was in a toxic job, what I was experiencing. And Dr. Kamani's channel is Lifting As We Climb Consulting, which I will link in the description. But I think like the voice that she has given to this issue, that so many of us have experienced globally, deliberately being targeted, underpaid, being asked to work multiple jobs, being pressured, not just asked, pressured, not given the support that we deserve, facing microaggressions, taking on extra labor, because we know that our response, the way that we are socialized as Black women, is to work even harder when we're encountering all these things around us. And unfortunately, that leads us down a path of even more exhaustion, more burnout, because what we really need is to leave that toxic environment because they don't value us. And a lot of the times we're tokenized. We're tokenized, we're putting to these positions for marketing materials, for a way for places to look good, when behind the scenes they're treating us horribly. We're just expected to just take it and not say anything. No, this is severe, right? We have seen with the passing of Dr. Candia-Bailey the consequences of this. And I'm tired of holding my tongue. I feel like I've spoken on this issue. It has been part of my healing process to share what I went through, to share where I was, because I was in a really sad place, right? Experiencing suicidal ideation because of a job. And now being out of it, almost a year later, I'm like, due to a job? But when you're in it, it feels all consuming. It feels like there's no end to it. And especially if you have worked all of this time, if you have went through the trauma of college, You went through the trauma of graduate school, everything they try to throw at you, all the insults, all the microaggressions that you face in those environments, you made it through because you have a dream, you have a purpose that you're pursuing, right? You've got all the credentials, you have all the letters. And even if you don't, it's the same experience. Working towards something, finally getting to a spot, and then realizing this is what I worked for. This is what I worked for. For all of the work that I've done, all of the research that I've done, that has clearly displayed that I am highly capable in this field. Now I'm having someone talk over me all the time. Now I'm having someone try to pit me against other Black employees. It's seriously disillusioning. When you get to that point, the disillusionment that you experience, that can lead to feelings of deep depression, right? And even suicidal ideation. And I want you to know there are options. And I'm going to link the number to the National Suicide Lifeline if you have a US-based phone number. 988 is a number. But if anything, I want you to walk away from this video knowing that you have options. And believe me, let my story be a way for you to see that you have options. That's why I'm sharing it. That's why I'm sharing my journey in all of its raw moments, the times I have questioned, am I even skilled anymore to do anything different? The level of mistreatment that I had internalized that something was wrong with me. It was deep. And almost a year later, I'm just now getting to the point where I'm realizing the skills that I have gained throughout my life, throughout my career. I have a master's degree. I was questioning, am I even qualified? Would anyone want me? Would anyone want me? And having studied just a little bit about domestic abuse, these are similar experiences to people who have been in abusive relationships, like romantic partnerships, right? Can I leave and be okay? Because it feels isolating. And that is a tactic of abusers. Isolate you. Make you feel like this is the only thing that you'll ever be able to do. This is the top. So if you can't make it here, clearly something is wrong with you. When it's the environment, the entire time, right? Depersonalizing is so important. Taking that blame out that you have on yourself. Something is wrong with me. That's why they're treating me like this. No. And it's going to feel confusing because all the messages that we have received throughout our lives is that if someone is treating you wrong, what are you doing? And I have thoughts about that, right? That's a way for oppressors to kind of escape and evade accountability, to make us think that if someone is treating us wrong, to automatically look at ourselves, what are we doing? Instead of what's wrong with them, externalizing it. Why are they treating you like this? Did you not come into this job with the best of intentions? Did you not prove yourself at every point? Because believe me, as Black women, the hurdles that we have to jump over, and we have to talk about colorism. We have to talk about featureism, texturism, classism, homophobia, right? We have to talk about all these things, poverty, ableism, the intersections of our identities. The more identities that you have that fall with like outside of the dominant space, the more likely you are to experience oppression, mistreatment, harm. And that has to be said. And how many barriers do we have to get over to get to this point, then to be harmed again once we make it? Once we get to the job, once we get to the title, once we get to that coveted place that was told to us, this is where you need to strive to be. This is where you need to push yourself past your mental, physical limits to be. And once you get to that place, they don't want you there. So this whole time, we're being lied to. This whole time, we're taught that if we do these things, we'll earn respect. Once we get to this place, we will earn the ability to be viewed as human. But we're already enough. We've always been enough. Just who you are is enough. And that internal validation, once you take that power back, no longer are you going to have the ability to tell me that I'm capable, that you want me for this job. You should feel blessed. You should feel lucky that I'm in this role because of what I bring. Once you take that power back, that internal validation, they don't have power over you anymore. And that's why they want to keep us in this system of harming us, that deliberately targets us. And we see the consequences of this, again, are severe. These are not just, oh, it's a job, people will talk. No. These things cut deep. And we know that, especially like in the US context, we spend the vast majority of our lives at work. So if you are in an abusive relationship at work, think about how harmful that is. And it spreads, not just you, your family, your friends, because we live in community. We're not individuals just existing in isolation by ourselves. We live in communities, and how we're feeling, especially as Black women, again, we are the leaders in our families, in our communities. If we're not well, if we're being harmed, everyone is going to feel the impact of that. And that's why we have to put ourselves first. We have to prioritize our well-being. And that means making an exit plan from a toxic job, because you deserve better, and you deserve to be well, and you deserve to have people value you and appreciate you. That's the baseline. We're taught that we have to accept this just for what? What's the end goal? To endure mistreatment, to endure harm, to endure being underpaid? Why? Why do we have to do that? These systems are set up for us to be treated this way, but that doesn't mean we don't have agency, because the more of us that share our stories, we realize it's not just me, because that's exactly how I felt when I was in a toxic job experience. It has to be just me. No one else can understand what I'm going through. Pushing myself, trying to teach myself to do my job better, right? To try to convince people that I was worthy. When the whole time I was worthy, I was already worthy. So I was spinning my wheels and going deeper and deeper into depression, to the point where it got to experiencing suicidal ideation, because I could not find a way to solve this. And I was working tirelessly to try to. And so I want this message of this video to be: opt out. Opt out of trying to convince people of your worth, because you're already worthy. You're already worthy. Opt out of feeling like you have to stay in a toxic work environment and there are no options available to you, because there are so many. And I hope to continue to share resources, right? About starting your own business, which is what I did. And there is a risk, right? If you do get another job, there is a risk that you may enter back into a toxic work environment, which I did. I entered into another toxic work environment, but because I had educated myself, because I knew the pattern of behavior and abuse that exists within toxic work environments, I was able to leave after a month and save myself the harm that would have followed. The longer that you stay in a toxic work environment, in a toxic situation, the more you will be harmed. And that's why it's paramount for you to leave as soon as possible, having an exit plan in place. Because we know that our livelihoods, so much is dependent on it, right? If you have a family, right, your house, your car, your entire life is dependent on this, which makes it that more scary. The possibility that you may have to leave, but it never gets better in a toxic work environment. And you have to come to that radical acceptance. It will never get better. It will get worse. It will get worse. And that's a hard reality sometimes to sit with, right? Because we want to believe if I work harder, if I try to convince people, right? If I have another meeting with someone, if I say something differently, if I approach this a different way, right? Doing all of this extra mental energy, this is labor that we're putting in. Thinking maybe this will be the key. Maybe this will get them to stop talking over me. No, because it was never you. It was never about you. That is their issue that they are projecting onto you. And that's why you can't win in that situation, because it's nothing that you're doing. The only way you win is to exit that situation before it gets worse, before your depression gets even deeper, right? And this is where therapy is key. Therapy was key for me, starting therapy, having my therapist be able to reflect back to me. I think it's the job, right? As I was sharing with her, how do I have a strategy to do this differently so that I'm not so anxious all the time, so that I'm not so depressed? That was the reason I started therapy, thinking something was wrong with me, only to have her reflect back to me. I think it's just the work environment. I don't think anything's wrong with you. That was freeing, right? So I will link therapy resources in the description too, because that can be a life changer. Finding the right therapist who gets you, who's able to reflect back to you what you're actually experiencing. And it's not you. It's not you. Right? But if you're struggling, if you're struggling in a toxic work environment, if you're struggling from the aftermath of a toxic work environment, know that you're not alone. This is unfortunately the case for so many of us. And like I said, as more of us are feeling safe enough to share our stories, we're seeing how common this is. The mistreatment, the deliberate targeting of Black women in the workplace, right? The concept of from pet to threat, coined by Dr. Keisha Thomas, Dr. Rosemary Phelps, and Dr. Juanita Johnson-Bailey. 3 Black women researchers coined this term, from pet to threat. We're brought in as a shiny new object, in quotes, a lot of the times in these work environments, only for us to share our opinions, actually fulfill the job duties that we were assigned, and all of a sudden we're viewed as a threat because now someone thinks that we're trying to take their job. Which leads to a cycle, a downward spiral, because you're fighting against the current, trying to do more, trying to work harder, trying to figure out what people want. The whole time it's not you. It's nothing that you're doing. It's the environment. And believe me, if anything, if what I have shared can show you, once you leave that environment and give yourself time and space to heal, because it takes time, you'll get those things back. They'll come back. Your talents, your abilities, your skills, they didn't go nowhere. They didn't go anywhere, right? They're still within you. And once you leave that environment, you kind of reawaken to everything that you can do, everything that you've done, everything that you've proven to yourself that you're capable of. It comes back. But please know that you have options. Please know that things do get better once you leave that environment. Because as Dr. Kamani says, right, you cannot heal where you're being harmed. Those two things don't go together. You can't heal where you're being harmed. So again, I will link Dr. Kamani's channel in the description. She has so many resources about how to exit plan, how to get your finances together, because that's a huge area that keeps a lot of us feeling trapped in these environments on purpose. On purpose. This is used as a strategy, right? Again, going back to people who have survived domestic abuse. We see that financial abuse is a component of domestic abuse, right? Restricting access to finances so that you feel dependent on this relationship to survive. That's the same thing we see in workplaces. The pattern plays out because it's an abusive pattern. And again, abusive patterns lead to drastic, deadly consequences, as we see, right? Honoring again the life of Dr. Candia-Bailey. This is a serious issue. And I just want you to know that you have options. Even if it doesn't feel like it, even if the words I'm saying sound completely out of left field, just sit with that. You have options. Working with that realization going forward, knowing that this is not the only thing. You deserve better. Just sitting with that can start to open up those opportunities in the spaces for you to finally see and finally realize how amazing you are and how deserving of being in an environment where you feel valued and appreciated all the time. You deserve that. You don't have to stay in a toxic work environment. There are options. There are other options. And I think that's the end message of this video, right? There are options. And just know that if you're going through this, I feel you. I see you. I am healing. And I have been in a space where I felt like there were no options. And it was only through the support of my family and watching Dr. Kamani's channel, seeing that I wasn't alone, being in the chat, seeing other Black women share their stories, having resources available to me, being able to connect with community that is safe, that sees me, that will not judge me, and that has been through the same thing I'm going through, because this is so common. This is so common, and it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. So yes, resources will be linked in the description. Thank you for watching this video. Please leave a comment if it resonated. Please subscribe to my channel for future content around this topic area as I'm healing and feeling more comfortable sharing what I've been through and the strategies I've used to heal, right, in this past year. So yes. All right, y'all. Until next time. Thank you.